Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ number 34, the knife series where I answer all your questions, whether they're sharp or dull. This week, amongst some other things, we're going to be talking about what is the best steel for the money. Let's get into it. So if you're unfamiliar with our Knife AQ segments, we basically pull questions from our comment section and answer them for you guys here. Now, if you want a chance to get one of your own questions featured in a future installment, just go ahead and leave a comment below and maybe you'll get picked. Maybe we'll be able to feature it in some point in the future. But let's get into the first question for this week, which comes to us from Mr. Anderson.
Imposter.
No, he spelled it a different way.
Okay.
He says, I've got a question, Mr. Anderson. He got my spelling right. Hey.
I'll have it eventually.
What differentiates a Wharncliffe type blade from a Sheepsfoot? Blade shape classifications seem to be all over the place, and I'm not sure why. It's because some people tend to play a little fast and loose with definitions. We'll get to that in a little bit. I see what I have always understood to be Wharncliffe called Sheepsfoot and vice versa all the time. So I've got an example of the two different blade shapes here on roughly the same body. We've got the ZT230 with the Sheepsfoot blade and the 235 with a modified Wharncliffe in this case. And kind of the main difference between the two is a Sheepsfoot is going to have kind of a more abrupt drop or a rounder drop near the tip of the knife, and you're going to have a little bit more of a stubby look as opposed to the Wharncliffe, which is characterized by a very acute point, very different in a way, essentially from that Sheepsfoot profile. And the thing is, when we talk about classifications, there's a few reasons why things tend to get confused a little bit, and that is there's no real way to standardize where the breakover point in between a Sheepsfoot and a Wharncliffe is. It's kind of a little bit by eye, so it's a little bit subjective. Also, like I said, you have manufacturers out there playing maybe a little fast and loose with blade shape definitions. For instance, ZT calls this 235 a spear point, and I can kind of see where they're getting at with it, but this is to me, this is a modified Wharncliffe all the way. Modified, of course, because you have a bit of belly to the edge itself, as opposed to it being completely straight like a traditional Wharncliffe is thought to be. So that's why you see, like I said, some of the differences in, terminology out there. But essentially, Sheepsfoot, stubby, like the kind of the hoof of a, or it's not a hoof, but is it a hoof?
It's on the feet.
It's it's like a cloven hoof or something. I don't know. But think of it like literally what it's named for. You've got the paw, foot, whatever, of a sheep or a lamb. Sometimes it's called a lamb's foot, whereas the Wharncliffe is much more pointy. And beyond that, like I said, it's subjective. It's up to you. Hope that answers your question, sir. All right, next question comes from Kevin Stryker. Says, I need an overbuilt survival fixed blade with a Sheepsfoot blade. Why are knife makers not jumping on the Sheepsfoot train? DCA, do you know of any? Sure, I've got something right here. It's a bit more of a pricey one. We've got the Spartan Hybris coming in at about $330. And this is kind of a modified Sheepsfoot, because then you got some belly to the edge itself here. But the tip, I'd say, falls onto the Sheepsfoot side of things. If it were just a little bit more acute, I'd call it a Wharncliffe. But again, that's where kind of the subjectivity comes into play. But these are excellent knives, S35VN, made in the USA. Got a nice classic Molly style of nylon sheath here. Yeah, what's more to say? G10 grips, has a nice feel in the hand. You've got a choil there for choking up for finer work, and you get the benefits of that robust tip out near the front. Another a more affordable one would be something like the Ontario Journeyman, based on their Pilot survival knife with the stacked leather handle. Those are real affordable, like $37, $38, something like that. But the reason I don't think you see more kind of Sheepsfoot style, quote unquote, survival knives is kind of the outdoor intent or the outdoor crossover that the survival knife genre tends to fit in. And in that style of knife, stuff like game processing, skinning, is a bit of a consideration. So you're more typically going to see survival knives with more belly out here near the tip for those types of tasks. And that's something that especially with skill, definitely can be done with a blade like this. It's just a little less intuitive, requires a little bit more know-how and how you're using your blade. And yeah, it's just not quite where the genre tends to sit. But there are a few things out there like this, like the Ontario. Maybe check those guys out. All right, next question comes from Iron Shaft. Hi David, which blade steel do you think is the best for the money, no value limit? For example, is it better to buy D2 for $50 or Maximet for over $200? Here's some options there. We got some D2 and some Maximet here to take a look at. A little bit under your prices there on for both of those actually. This is the Spyderco Native 5 with Maximet steel, comes in $182, and we got the K-Bar Dozier Folding Hunter with D2, which comes in about $32 right now. So both very affordable, or sorry, not both very affordable. The K-Bar especially very affordable thanks to the handle construction here. And that's the same on the Spyderco at top. Now to determine which one is a better value per edge retention, it's hard to say because there's no specific data value we can place on degrees of edge retention, or so to speak. There's a little bit more, I hate to say subjectivity involved here too. But when it comes to value, at a certain point, the more expensive you get, you are going to get diminishing returns for your dollar. And that's true of anything, not just knife steel, but any genre out there. Think like high-end audio equipment, automobiles, all kinds of stuff. The more expensive you're getting, you are going to be getting more degrees of performance, but it's going to cost you more for each extra degree, so to speak. So, I mean, really, those $50 D2 flippers that are out there these days kind of really changed the game. You get a lot of edge retention in that $50 range. Pretty much D2 is the most you can get these days anyway. But if you really want the value quotient, go for these less expensive handle construction, like the simple Zytel with the backlock here. Nothing fancy. Your dollars are going towards the blade steel itself. I mean, $32 for this guy right here is a lot of a heck of a bargain for the amount of edge retention you've got. The Ontario Rat 1s in D2 coming in at $40. More blade to play with, more handle, but still kind of economical handle construction. That's where you're going to get the most value for sure. Same is true of that Maximet. I've actually got another Maximet knife here, the Spyderco Para 3. Both of these have about the same amount of edge, but with the G10 and the compression lock on the Para 3, that one then comes in over that $200 mark, coming in about, where is it? Somewhere over here, $213 right now. So yeah, stick with the little slightly less expensive handles for the most value. I would say though, like I said, there's diminishing returns the more money you spend. And on a lot of things, when you get into that real high range of things, you might have a bunch of steels stacked up near the high end that are a little bit better, a little bit worse than each other, but it's gonna be real hard to tell the difference. And for that reason, I actually think Spyderco's K390 bladed lightweight models are an even better value than these Maximet models. Because you're gonna save a decent bit of money over it, but you're still gonna get some really high edge retention. All right, next question is from James Todd. What do you think is the ultimate blade material for edge retention? I did put that there on purpose so I could kind of segue into it based off the previous conversation. At the real high end of the edge retention equation, you've got stainlesses like S90V, S110V, and you've got non-stainless stuff like K390, 10V, Venatus 8, a fairly new steel. You got stuff like that Maximet. Basically, I'd say, don't pay too much attention to the exact steel in this case. If you want stainless, go with one of the stainlesses, or if you don't mind, you can go with one of the others. But apart from that, whatever design strikes your fancy, grab that one. Even if like Maximet should hold an edge a little bit longer than K390 in lab conditions, real world, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. So make yourself happy. Go with the knife shape that makes you the most happy. Pick the steel that it happens to come in and go with that. All right, next question comes from Bill64GR. Which is comfier in the hand, the mini Bugout or the new 945 mini Osborne? Here in Europe, the Osborne's quite a bit more expensive. So is it worth it is essentially the question here. So I've got both of the knives here in front of me. This particular mini Osborne comes in about $175, and this particular mini Bugout comes in about $136. This is one of the CF Elite handled version, so it's a little bit more expensive than the base model. But when it comes down to it, both of them are essentially the same size, same steel. You've got essentially the same blade length and sharpened edge as well. Same lock, reversible pocket clip. So where do the differences lie? And in my hands, at least, between these two, there's not much to really separate them. Maybe the handle for me on the 945 is a little bit more accommodating, and that's thanks to the drop here at the back. It allows my pinky finger to kind of slide off the back but still grab. It's going to be a very subjective thing. My hands are slightly larger than average, so depending on the size of your hand, this may or may not matter. On the mini Bugout, for me, I don't really have a good spot to grab with my pinky. It kind of slides off the back a little bit. Not the hugest deal between these two. Both of them feel good. I think what it basically comes down to is which do you prefer? Do you want a more discreet carry? You do get a deep carry pocket clip with the mini Bugout. If you want nicer materials though, blade's the same, but you can get G10s or aluminums now on the latest version of the mini Osborne. So it's going to give you a little bit of a more premium feel. Is that extra however many dollars or however many euros for you worth it? Only you can say. And I can say also you could get an aftermarket deep carry clip for these too. So that's not the primary decision maker there. But do you want something a little bit nicer? Go with the 945. If that doesn't matter, go with the mini Bugout. It's going to have slightly better slicing characteristics overall. All right, next question is from XFS540, commenting on one of our new knives videos where I showed the new mini Recons from Cold Steel. It says, everywhere I've seen the new mini Recon is advertised with GRN handles, but I said G10 in the video, asking me if I'm sure. No, I'm not sure. That is a mistake on my part. I did say G10, and that happens to be because as I was looking at this on the day we were filming, you guys know those videos, I breeze through a lot of stuff pretty quickly. Some things I go by eye, and some GRNs, some injection molded handles are really nicely done. And this one has a very G10-like texture on it. Doesn't feel all that different than a G10, but of course it is different. But kind of compare and contrast the handles on those Ontario Rats, you can definitely tell they're a plasticky material. The Recon ones, not as much. It is, you can tell, and if I'd looked a little closer, I probably wouldn't have made that mistake, but as I was going through, it's just how nicely these are done. Pretty cool knives, 68 bucks. You've got the clip point, which I showed, you've got a Tonto, and you've got this drop point profile here, just under 3 inches, so you've got plenty of length, AUS 10 steel, good handle on it, just enough to get all 4 of my fingers on it and really bear down pressure on it if I need to, and the excellent triad lock as well. Really compelling package, especially if you need one of those harder use 3-inch knives. All right, next question comes from James Harris. I have not yet seen a square blade on a knife, like a box cutter on the tip, but intentionally done on a knife with a better design handle. Yeah, man, you're talking about more or less a sheepsfoot, or some of those clipped off reverse Tonto shapes even. It's out there. Here's I showed that ZT. I've got another one here, the Ontario Bezra, a nice affordable option. Comes in about 40 bucks. You've got that AUS 8 blade. I believe it's AUS 8, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, AUS 8 blade with that sheepsfoot profile. This one's, again, still on the sheepsfoot side, but you've got enough of an acute tip there. You can still do some great box cuttery stuff. And that's why I tend to talk about blade shapes like these, sheepsfoot and a lot of Wharncliffes, as being really good for utility, like utility type knives, such as would be performed with a box cutter blade. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say like utility based. The reason I pulled this one in particular is you've got an almost straight drop to the spine here at the front. There's a little bit of an arc to it, but you've got essentially a tip very similar to like that typical hexagonal shaped utility scraper blade, box cutter blades with the snap off style. kind of have this kind of geometry out there near the tip, but you've got a much more comfortable handle like you meant. Well, not necessarily. Some of those extendable blade guys actually have pretty comfortable handles. But you've got a more typical knife handle here with micarta on the front, titanium on the back, and it is a ball bearing flipper with a pocket clip as well. So not a bad EDC by any stretch of the imagination. Just don't go trying to snap the blade tip off.
Yeah, that might be bad.
Yeah, that would probably not be covered under warranty, people. All right, now we're gonna come to the lightning round for today. First one from Quentin Sales. What are serration used for? Cutting.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek. Here we go. I got a new Kershaw here. This is the Analyst. Comes in $32 with partially serrated edges here. And the things serrations tend to be best at, I've found, is stuff that's fibrous or really slippery. So fibrous, think like rope, especially like heavy manila rope can, a fine edge, especially if it has a really high mirror polish on it, can actually kind of slide off. These are going to dig in quite nicely. Fabrics tends to work pretty well. And in terms of like the slippery stuff, working on cars like rubber hoses, that sort of thing.
Zip ties.
Zip ties can work. I like to use the tip usually on a zip tie myself, but they can definitely pull some really good duty on stuff like that. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. That's kind of where serrations, I think, shine the best. All right, next question is from Real Life, but it's pictures sideways. I don't know what's going on there. My zombie apocalypse knife would be a lightsaber. I mean, if we're talking about fictional stuff in the first place, it's hard to argue with that. So I won't. Next question is from Mark Loeffler. Hello, David. I'm thinking about going camping soon, looking for a good folding saw. Any recommendations? Absolutely. I am all about the Silky saws. This is their Pocket Boy right here, which is a very easily carried item. It's about $45. I'm a really big fan of their Big Boy, which has like a 14-inch blade, comes in about $70. It still folds in quite nicely. You can throw it in a pack. My Big Boy goes with me on pretty much every camping trip. But the saw blades on the Silkies are kind of changed my mind on saws. I used to not like folding saws at all until I used the Silky. They rip through some wood. It's a pull stroke only because it's a Japanese style of teeth. So it's no pressure on the, or no cutting on the forward stroke, and then just light pressure, use the weight of the saw on the pull stroke, and it's gonna chew through some wood. These Pocket Boys are cool too. They even come with a nice clear case there, so you can throw that in a pocket or a bag. Nothing's gonna get caught up on teeth or anything like that. But Silky saws all the way. We'll make sure to leave a link to the whole brand below. All right, next question comes from Elizer Vega. Bought the riffle. I wonder how you sharpen Damascus without ruining the look. Here is the riffle from Civivi. It's not going to be an issue really. Damascus here involves, what brings out the pattern in any Damascus steel is some kind of either etching or oxidation process that acts on the surface of the steel. And that's what kind of brings out the visual difference in the layers, because you've got two materials that react at different rates. So that's how you get the visual. But you don't see that on the sharpened edge itself, because as you sharpen it, you're removing that outer layer of oxidation. And that's exactly what you're gonna do when you go to sharpen it. You're just hitting the edge here. You're not gonna be messing up the look at all. You're not gonna be removing any of the layers, so to speak, but you still get to enjoy that nice look on the outside. I gotta say, the riffle's quite nice. It's a good shape, definitely one of my favorite Civivi releases this year. All right, which brings us to our last question, which is our most seriousest question of the day. King Cormac asks, I'd like to see a comprehensive review of survival spoons. I heard the Chinese are making some nice ones. Got a few options here, actually. And the question, though, you have to ask yourself first is, do you go full tang or do you go multi-tool? This guy says survival spoon to me. This is the Kershaw spoon handle fillet knife. Comes in about $22. You got your nice spoon there at the back, and you get a bonus fillet knife here on the other end when you're not using the spoon section. Just a simple stainless style of blade. You got a pretty good amount of flex going on. Definitely one of the flexier fillet knives out there. Rubberized handle, so you're not gonna worry about shock too much or cold from the metal. I'm actually not sure if it is full tang or not. Don't quote me on that. But you can always use a good blade in a survival situation, and if you can have a spoon to go with it, or if you can have a blade on your spoon, why wouldn't you? But if you don't want to go the bladed route, you can check out the K-Bar Crunch polymer spoon. These guys are about $8.50 or just over. And this is the multi-tool option, or a multi-tool option. Even though it looks just like a normal spoon right here, the handle actually is hollow, so you can use it as a straw. They say it's so you can, suck out the last milk from the bowl, but really what you're going to use that for is like getting between rocks to get it like a water seep in a survival scenario. So if you might not be able to get to that water, otherwise you got the straw going on right there. So this is not the comprehensive review you were looking for, but there's a few good options for your survival straw right there. That's all we've got time for today. As always, leave your questions in the comments, including your most serious questions, and we'll see if we can feature some of them in a future installment. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we'll leave links in the description as always to take you over to the Knife Center. And make sure you click the Knife Rewards link in the top right corner and make sure you're signed up so that you can earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you put your money down on one of these today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center signing off. See you next time.